Hey, I'm Matt with Schematical, and I'm happy to announce today I recorded my first strategic assessment. This is a program where a customer might come to me and they're not big enough that they can afford my services yet, but I still want to offer them some help. So what I'll do is I'll assess their infrastructure problem or their architecture problem. Here, it does specifically pertain to AWS, machine learning, and Dreambooth, which turned out to be cool. And they were using our open source Terraform scripts, which you're welcome to use as well. They're on GitHub, github.com/schematical. And of course, schematical.com, there's links to it and everything like that. So the interview turned out okay. The format I'm still working on, so work in progress over perfection. The audio kind of went weird at one point and it's a little slow, but there are some nuggets of wisdom in there for those of you that are trying to figure out how to do this yourself. And so without going too far into this, I'm just going to jump right into the interview. Thank you on Discord, Blobby. We'll get into the rest of it in the interview. So thank you so much. And yeah, here it is. How's it going? How can I help you here today?
Yeah, so I've been messing with a bunch of these scripts. Really, the goal is simple. It is to have a Dreambooth setup that just trains via batch jobs. I have never done any of this before. I'm an engineer by I don't even know if I should say by trade. Studied engineering. I'm not a practicing software engineer. That would be the best definition. So I've played around with a bunch of scripts. I have a Docker image that is now building fine, but I think some pieces are missing here, and it's a little bit all over the place.
So are we using code pipeline and code build to build the images, or how are you building those?
Yeah. So let me share my screen. Not yet. So I kind of pulled some of your stuff in here, and what you see on the left is modules. In modules, I pulled, I think you had a longer name for this, but I kind of emulated it based on your GPU service. And this is emulated based on your stuff.
Okay.
This is and then the subfolder is a Docker build file, slightly different than yours. Slightly different than yours because I'm using CUDA 11.8.
Okay.
But all this is just standard stuff.
So this looks good from a start. So where's the hiccups right now? Where are we running into problems at?
It doesn't work. Something here somewhere breaks. And I don't think I actually pulled all this together, including the build pipeline. Yeah. So, and there's no VPC here. I think if you look at VPC, we may be creating one somewhere here in my archives. That was my giant blob of a file. Okay. Maybe it's creating somewhere. Anyway, I'm a little bit puzzled on like what is the order of operations? How do you exactly?
So typically, when I boot stuff up, the VPC comes first for each environment. So, but if you're, did you say you're booting one up in the Terraform scripts? It looks like not using the Amazon console, right?
I did in my archive, but that's when I think I should probably pull your VPC from your Terraform repo because I see you have a subfolder there.
Yeah, I'd recommend that. I mean, those are being used like in my alpha environment. It hasn't actually gone to a production state yet, but in the alpha environment we're working on. So like the scripts you see there are literally the exact same scripts I'm using. So
yes, let me pull that in. So let me do that.
Just a heads up, you can also reference scripts just by using the GitHub URL. If you just to save yourself the copy and pasting. So just something to think about.
What do you mean?
So when you reference a module, you can actually reference that module's GitHub URL and just specify it in GitHub there. So I should split out those modules to their own individual GitHub repos, but not important for now. Just in the future, it'll just save you the hassle of copying it locally. It'll just use whatever's on GitHub.
I see. Cool. So, okay, copy these guys in. Do they even have Terraform on this? Oh, great. I don't even have Terraform on this fucking machine. So I might need to set that up. But maybe if you could give me the high level, just like a couple of notes on like what's the order of operations here.
All right, yeah, that sounds good. And this was what's supposed to be my next video. So I'll share my screen with you.
Cool.
And I take it you can see my screen right here?
No, it is loading.
Okay.
It's indefinitely loading, which is usually a bad sign.
All right, let's stop it. Let's try it again. Yep.
No. Streaming has blah 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 blah.
Change window.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
You got it?
Yep.
All right. So you can see here we're in schematic.c Terraform. All right. Cool. So first module we usually lay down is the VPC, and so I think I kind of discussed that. You can pass in however many subnets you want, basically. So for each subnet, and this is the availability zones that they're going to be in there. And I don't know, you kind of asked about this before, but I'm going to say it kind of, if I over-explain something, it's also for the listener that's watching the YouTube video later. But there's basically a bunch of bunkers out there inside of each region, like 4 to 6 of them, depending on the region. And this says I want servers running in these various regions, or I want the ability to boot up servers in these various regions. The reason there's private subnets is you don't want the whole internet to talk to your stuff. It really doesn't matter so much with these guys because they turn on and turn off right away. But if you had like a web server running, you wouldn't want SSH traffic going to that. So a lot of security stuff there. Public subnets are basically for when you do want something going to that. And in this case, since we're doing batch, it's not needed, but they don't cost like anything, so it really doesn't matter. So we still boot them up in case you had like a RESTful web API or something like that, which I do have. All my infrastructure has like load balancers or whatever listening for that. So this is just some associations. They basically say, hey, this is the route table. So you can basically say that this block of IP addresses goes to here. So we handle all that stuff there. You really don't need to worry about this stuff. It just, that's why I built these scripts. So it just works for whoever wants to use it. And then it does set up a Bastion security group, which you could turn on a Bastion. And that's just a way to jump past the public subnet into the private subnet and SSH around if you needed to, but I don't think you're going to need that. So that's the first.
Is this module plug and play? Like if you were to set up a new machine, are there any gaps of stuff that you need to do to set it up just to run it, I guess, in here as a Terraform?
So that it's a work in progress. You shouldn't have to. I've used it on a couple of projects now, and you should be able to just pass in these variables and go. With that said, this will probably be a project that I continue updating and upgrading for the next however many months. But my clients use these scripts or variations of these scripts to set up their VPCs. At least the clients that listen to me. So so this should be pretty much plug and play. They're all designed to be standalone. Like the build pipelines used to build Lambdas. It's used to build the batch workers. It's used to build the front end that is a React static site. So this build pipeline one is a pretty versatile one for sure. They get a little more specific as we get into like Lambda service or CloudFront, but this one
I see.
and this one are really dirt simple, basic.
And when you pass, when I use, I think one of your scripts, I don't remember from where, one of these without the VPC, because I didn't know that it was a precursor, it complained that it couldn't find a VPC, but how does it know in terms of variables passed? How does it know where to look? Because they seem separate.
Yeah, so there's the variable file here, which is what's prompting for it, private subnet mapping. So this is asking for that input there. Now, if you go out here, and I'm probably going to change this eventually, but you're getting in this early enough, is that this is actually some real production level stuff that I'm doing here. And Chaos Pixel, which is my Dreambooth solution, basically my tool that allows managing of models for Dreambooth. I don't know if you go back and look at my older videos. I've been trying to do this for like 3 years and finally figured out I can do it with Dreambooth. But that has, let's see, domain. You see here, I pass in subnet mappings to a Lambda service. So this is just that Lambda service module. There's going to be a build pipeline module somewhere around here. Here's a build pipeline module. This one's for the Lambda. So you see I'm passing in there. So you'll take, I guess, let me just go back a second.
If you are in the GPU service or somewhere there.
Yes, I guess I got ahead of myself here. Every module has outputs as well. So the module, the VPC module outputs its private subnet mapping as
to where?
To let's go see where that's booted up at. So in my main file here, I have the VPC. The module VPC here. So I've got this, it boots up as module just called VPC. And you can see somewhere else, it's going to be referenced right here. So this says module, like that's kind of the type module, VPC, so that's this VPC dot private subnet mappings, which is from that output file. So it's passing that, basically it's setting it as,
like a local variable of sorts?
Yeah, exactly. A local variable. So I do one for my dev environment, one for my staging environment, one for my production environment, etc.
But this is in the main production project, not as a separate module. So if I'm basically running the module as a standalone VPC and it outputs it, does it output it somewhere? And then I can, basically what I'm saying is, can I go to the module folder for the VPC, run that, then CD into the GPU service, run that, because there's no dependency between the two. So it's like, where's the local variable for that?
Yeah, you do have to pass that information around. So it comes out of the module, the VPC module, it outputs it. And then if you watch when I walk through this, it'll keep passing this environment info deeper and deeper, because I've got it set up where every environment's almost identical. So I say, let's see, here Project Chaos Pixel, I pass the environment info into, and then when I go into projects Chaos Pixel, you can see in the main here, it'll find the var env dev VPC ID, var env dev private subnet mappings, and it passes that to the dev environment of Chaos Pixel there. And so you do have to pass it through. You can't set it as a global, at least not to my knowledge. So,
but do you need to run it from the main Terraform file first? Because
Yep. The whole thing.
That was my question.
Yep. The whole thing. Whenever I go to run this, I change into this directory, and this is our entry point.
That was the missing part. I was just going into each folder.
Yeah. No. Okay. That's yep. So no, you want to just go to the main. and then run it. There is a way to specify a target if I can find the right screen.
But that's just going to be a little bit more headache.
Yeah, but you could go. I mean, sometimes it makes sense to do it. Like, when I'm being surgical and I'm testing something small, then I might do this. Or a lot of times I'm surgical on my destroys. Like, you got to restart something, or you want to like basically rip it down and restart. Then you do Terraform, apply, destroy, dash target, and then the basically the namespace of what that is. So. But yeah, I start everything's in that main kind of file there. SC Terraform /TF is the main part of my infrastructure. So eventually I'm going to have to hide that. But for now, I'm kind of leaving it open for people to use because it does have a huge part of my infrastructure in there. So
Got it. And has it ever happened to you that you set this up and for some reason the jobs are getting stuck on a runnable state? Because as I was messing with this in the last couple of days, I've been getting that.
That means that your compute resources, well, it could mean a couple things, but most likely that means your compute resources aren't booting up. So when you go into the console, it'll probably try and boot up an instance that runs on EC2 here. If that instance for any reason doesn't get online, or if it gets online and for some reason there's basically a Docker worker that can't reach out. It could be a security group reasons, like it can't reach out. It's got like no outbound rules to that security group. If it can't reach out to batch and tell it, hey, I'm healthy, then your task will always be in that runnable state. I've had that happen for like a week when I was writing a custom ECS image. Don't do that.
That's what happened to me, and I saw that in the compute environments. The instances were up. They were up and running, but the thing was just stuck in running.
Yeah,
it sounds like it's an issue.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that it's got network access because it needs to be able to reach the internet. So let's just say you put it on a private subnet that doesn't have like a network gateway or an internet gateway, so it can't reach out, talk to the internet. It's going to be sitting there.
How do you debug this if you were to look at your computer environment? Where would you see that it's like not?
The first thing I would do if I ran into that problem is I'd go in here and I'd try and SSH into it via that bastion we kind of talked about earlier. I'd boot up bastion, which I have here for my production in this particular account. And then I'd try and SSH into it. I'd also check the security groups. There's a couple layers to this thing, but security groups, is our firewall. So I'd say, does this thing have an outbound rules? This thing's dead. We'll find one that's not dead. The bastion's not dead. The bastion should be able to reach out. Yes. So if it doesn't have anything saying that it can reach out, then there's no way it's going to reach out to the internet and tell AWS batch that it can serve stuff. So that's number one or number two. I don't know what we're counting here, and then then I check the VPCs, which again, if you use my stuff, the VPCs are all going to be stellar. If you accidentally boot it up in a public subnet, it definitely can reach out, and if it's in a private subnet, it'll be fine. But you could see here, like for my dev one, here's my subnets, and I'd make sure that and the route tables. It could be that the subnet can't reach out because the route table's screwed up. But again, if you're using my VPC scripts, it takes care of all those headaches for you. And I would just make sure that that's all in order. And I have seen it where, this public route table doesn't have a route table entry for the internet gateway, so it can't talk to anything. It can only talk to things in that subnet. And so that's probably what you're running into. If you want to click through it, I'd take a peek right now.
Let's see if I didn't destroy all of it. Might have. Let me check.
And the other thing that could happen, and this is only if you're using a custom image, not your Docker file that runs on batch, but if you're using, you can make custom. I've done this and I wouldn't recommend it, but you can make custom EC2 kind of host images, host instances, and so that means you would actually create an AMI, an Amazon managed image, and yeah, you can see where I did it here. It was for this project too, and it wasted about 2 weeks of my life. But if those images don't come online and register the Docker container, then that's a problem too. But if you're not doing this, don't worry about it.
I see. No, I'm not. I just uploaded just a VCR. Okay. Well, I think that this machine is completely fucking busted. It has no, it doesn't have Terraform. It doesn't have anything. And I think I destroyed my environment. So I don't want to waste your time. I'll go and deal with that for a little bit.
Okay. Sounds good. Hopefully something I told you in here can help. Maybe we'll try it again once you get a little bit further along.
Yeah, one philosophical question here. This is a lot of layers of setup to get the bash jobs running.
Mm-hmm.
If this was a hobby project, would you need all of these layers, like the VPC subnets, all the parameters? Because in my mind, the basic thing here is the image and the compute environment. Maybe.
Yeah, you could probably get away without the VPC, though the VPC doesn't cost that much. So I mean, honestly, if you use my scripts kind of verbatim, then it should make some of those headaches go away. But some of this is overkill because this is set up to make it so an early stage startup that doesn't want to spend a minimum of $600 a month with an always on instance can get booted up, and then when they decide to put their pedal to the metal and they want to really go faster and serve more people, it will be able to service to thousands of people. Like my bigger clients, one of my biggest clients does over $250 million in business in a year, so we have to serve quite a bit. But they don't use AI, so again, I'm walking a line here. So these scripts though are designed probably at the point where you're going from hobbyist to I want to make a business out of this. And I'm doing my best to take the headaches out of it for people, but yeah, it is complicated. I wouldn't try and I wouldn't recommend people totally rewrite my scripts. I'd recommend they try and use the modules as given. With that said, this stuff is complicated enough. I can't really just here's one click and go, I mean, honestly, it's kind of what we're both doing is making it so people can use AI and then just give us their credit card number and then they don't have to worry about any of this. So
I think the gap for me was the to-do instructions, like even using the modules folder versus the main Terraform folder. That's where it was like, wait, where do I go?
And that is on my very long list of things to do is to document.
Have you seen, by the way, modal.com?
Modal.com?
It's a startup that's literally trying to abstract all of this as a service. They let you deploy all of this stuff, and obviously you can't use AWS credits with this, but if you look at their docs, for example, I think they have just look at fine-tuning, maybe, or something like that. The control F, fine-tuning. Fine-tune or something like that. Maybe the example is not in the docs. The example. Stable Diffusion CLI, the first one on the left.
Okay.
So what they, and this is the fine-tuning one, what they do is they give you a method that's called an image or a container, and then you basically call it with a GPU. Just feed your script here. You don't need to worry about anything else other than their actual, what do you want to run?
Okay. No, I mean, that's awesome. It's kind of, we're definitely in some type of gold rush for AI right now. So I think this is a good tool. It could be, I have to look into it more, but it sounds like a useful tool here. So
they're doing well. And they're optimizing the containers. I think they're doing parallel loading of something that I really don't understand. But maybe this page, if you look fine-tuned.
Sorry, say that again? You're cutting out just a bit here, right?
Oh, if you look about fine-tuning on this page, tune model, maybe in the box on the left. I just want to show you a specific example because that was pretty cool. Web endpoints, no. Oh, there you go. Deep learning with AI examples. Pet art using Dreambooth, maybe? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine tuning. There you go. That's the thing. And if you see their stub example, it's pretty cool. They have shared volumes there. So your training model is also accessible by your by your inference section or whatever it is. And you just choose your GPU basically here, pass in the stuff. See the stub CLS is like GPU equals A100. They take care of everything for you. The problem is that obviously they cost money.
Mhm.
This is all, they take a fat cut
Yeah.
on inference.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm trying to help people avoid is taking too much of that cut. Like I respect these guys doing that, and you know, but I like to do like a lot of little side startups, and I know I don't want to pay for compute power I'm not using, so I try to make something that could scale up and scale down as fast. But
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a pricing model on this one, but
The price, if you go to the pricing tab at the top, it's pay per use. It's by second or by app. But if you look at, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I was another one I'm looking into is Run.io, which does they have better GPU prices than AWS last I checked. So
Really?
yeah,
Convert them to hour thing at the top. There's a per second to per hour switch. I think this is a little bit. Actually, the T4 feels as close to AWS price. Which is weird. We're separate on for every CPU core and memory.
gotcha. Well, yeah, that's the price of convenience there. So, and for me, it's a little bit weirder because I come from like an AWS architecture background. So, like the AWS architecture is like I sleep it, so it's not a problem. And then going into AI is actually not my background. So, that's where I actually had more trouble there figuring that out. So, and not just AWS architecture, but they are typically the ones my clients end up using. So, but I'll check this out. Oh yeah, it sounds interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of cool tools that come out of this. So I'm hoping to help people do build that stuff and yeah. So.
I think the value with AWS is you can get credits, and with these guys, they give you $10 a month or something. But that's not.
Yeah, I wonder how much capacity they have too. And reliability. That's another thing I see with some of these other hosting companies. Like, yeah, AWS isn't always the best price solution, but they have reliability. So it depends.
Yeah, and capacity.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, some of these guys, you might end up in a queue where it won't run for a couple hours, which you actually kind of ran into this today when you were trying to boot up that AWS out of capacity and that availability zone, I guess. So
yeah.
But that's why my scripts have multiple availability zones to try and speed that up a bit.
If using your scripts, basically, you go to the main folder. I'm kind of looking at it right now. You go to TF. Mm-hmm. Where would you add the image back in the modules to just swap out the AWS batch PyTorch GPU service? Just like scrap all that out and replace it with my Docker file and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so you should be able to. I mean, that's where. Let's see. If we go in here, you start at the main, and we boot up a dev environment for this project. Chaos Pixels. You can see there's two different projects here. They're somewhat separate. So I say this is my project, and I pass it in the dev environment VPC, and even this is actually a centralized API gateway. It's kind of like a proxy that kind of combines all things. So I can do like schematical.com/project1/project2, whatever. And from there,
would you remove Chaos Pixel basically though if I'm running it, because that's not my thing?
Yeah, well, I mean you're welcome to copy it right now. I haven't put a license in here, but go ahead and good artist borrow, great artist steal. So, but either way, so
Oh no, I mean
you put your own
want
thing
to
there.
run my Docker image.
Yeah. So
basically.
you
That-
put because you could just, I mean, you could put it right here, like however you want to do it. But I'm walking, I guess I'm going to walk you towards kind of the center of it as we get there. So Chaos Pixel is right now only boots up one environment, but you put in multiple ones. And so you, instead of, the projects are all, this is kind of customized to me, but again, copy away from it. Then in here, so this is probably where you would almost start. You'd move this stuff to your main. I separated it out into projects because I'm just like, that's how my mind thinks. But so you'd say, instead of that, you'd pass into your build pipeline here, your build spec. And your build spec, so this is a path to my build spec. And this, based on the GitHub project. So let me start again. So to build pipeline, first thing you pass in is your GitHub URL, right, for now. So schematical.com/chaosville in this case. Then inside that chaosville, there's a folder called Lambda, and then there's a folder called build spec. In the build spec, you'd pass in your own Docker image. That's where you'd want to specify it. So that's let's look at another one. Let's find the build. So this is the module for that, but I want to find the build. So I guess, even in here, I pass in my batch worker build spec YAML, and then the build spec says build this Docker image, build that Docker image. Because there's actually, in that project right now, there's actually two Docker images. One's kind of a base image that I don't want to rebuild every time I want to push out a single one-line code change, and the other one's...
Can I just pass the modules folder and just add my build spec and Docker image in that section instead of pointing to a GitHub? And
you could code it up any number of ways.
But it's not set up that way.
Yeah, exactly. So right here, I would basically just take that folder I've got here, if you want to, kind of fork just this folder, and then then you could change, pop in your own Docker file and your build spec. But this build spec here, oh boy,
it's not.
I should have left that open in a different tab. But that build spec there is what's being referenced by this right here is basically that build spec. In reality, this is I did end up kind of forking this and hiding this for other reasons, because now I've got some special sauce in there that's for other things. But basically that's it. So you could just say your GitHub URL / just build spec, and it should pull from your Docker file. Does that make any sense? I'm kind of going in circles here, I feel.
Kind of. I think where I'm getting, it makes sense if I try it, and then we'll see if it makes sense. But I think that what I'm getting lost in is, why can't I go to the main Terraform file and then rip out this project Chaos Pixels and just say, you
could. Thing. Sorry, yeah. If you were to go, let me see where it's at. If you were to go in here and fork this and forget about all that, you create your own new. I'm just going to create a new one. You do new, main2.tf, and you could pop in your own thing and your GitHub user and all that stuff, and you could hard code the VPCs if you wanted to, or you could do what I did and just pop the VPC up there and
that is GitHub bit. Like literally keep it in the same repo, because I don't have multiple projects. I just have this one.
You can keep it in one repo. That'd be fine. I don't think that'd be a problem. Like, say you've got a repo that's got all your other code in it. I just create a new folder in it called TF at the root, and then just go TF/main. And then I would just reference my modules via the GitHub URL. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm botching the syntax right here, but if you wanted to use this module here, there is a syntax. I don't remember it off the top of my head, where you can reference it and say, like, at master or whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's possible. I need to split out all those modules into their own GitHub modules. So like, instead of just an SC Terraform, there'll be like SC API gateway or whatever. So I need to actually publish these. But again, they're kind of a work in progress. So, but yeah, there's no reason you couldn't put this as your root. You definitely could put this as your root Terraform file. The only reason I've separated mine out is so I can just manage my projects and environments in a way that I feel comfortable with.
Yeah, because you have multiple.
Yeah. I'll have, by the time this project's done, there'll be at least 3 to 4 environments that I want to be almost exactly the same except for scale. So.
Got it. So if I'm going to reading it back, the simplest way that I move forward on this is I copy this repo, rip out the other projects, point it to my Docker file where it builds the Docker file,
Yep.
and then just main Terraform in the main Terraform folder, and that should just work off the bat.
I'd love to say it's that simple, but ideally, there's going to be some massaging or something like that you're going to need to do to make sure it fits right. But yeah, kind of.
Asset environment variables here, like your AWS key.
No,
your
AWS
Github.
key is all set via my. If you set it in your credentials file, like when you set up your AWS CLI. It creates in your home directory a .aws folder like that, and in there's a credentials folder. I'm not going to open mine right now because it's obviously got my credentials in there. But if you set that up, AWS, the Terraform command line will actually pick up on your credentials without you ever having to check them into the files or anything.
And you have all this running in Windows too, I see.
Well, Windows. This is WSL Ubuntu that I'm running this in, but yeah, Windows. I just switched back to Windows, so I needed to edit a video. I actually run native Ubuntu most of the time, but yeah, you can run it in Windows.
Cool. Okay, I think that answers all my questions. Let's see if it works out of the bat for me. I've already hit some wall, but that kind of answers the main thing. It was just how do you even think about this thing as where do you start, where do you run? And I was getting lost because I was just copying random modules and I was trying to hack it. I just want the AWS batch PyTorch GPU service thingy. So if you just pull that in, and it didn't work. The
modules should work somewhat modularly, but they do kind of build off of that VPC. I will say that
yeah,
VPC
that was the gap.
I'll work on the docs there, but yeah, the VPC is definitely a base that everything else kind of needs and references. But after that, it's not as bad. I guess the build pipeline references like the individual services, but it's not like that's like on top, like you put that at the top, but the VPC definitely is on the bottom and everything builds on top of that. So
got it.
Cool. Well, yeah, so give it a shot. Keep posting if you get hung up. I'll do my best to help you with the scripts. And then this video I'll probably put out sometime next week. I might do some minor editing on it, but thanks for being my first person. This is my first strategic assessment, I call it. I actually designed this to kind of help startups get free advice while me getting content. So it kind of works. It's we're at a very interesting point for it. We're using my scripts already. So,
this is awesome. This is very, very helpful. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, you know where to find me on Discord. It's been a pleasure talking to you. So,
likewise. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.